I'd like to welcome everyone to today's show of Truth. And in today's episode, we have a special guest, John Hall. John's going to share with us today his personal life. He's going to open up about some different issues that, had affected him prior to going into law enforcement, and then how it affected him during the course of serving in law enforcement, and the different ways that he was able to overcome the struggles and adversities that he had faced. And no one is immune to traumas, weighing heavy on us. A lot of individuals, they use the phrase or the terminology of PTSD, which is a disorder. Okay. And Michael Segru and, so many others, they've came up with it to be PTSI, to where it's an injury, to where, with proper treatment, with, outreach, with following different resources, we are able to overcome, the different traumatic events that continuously play in our minds that drag us down. So that is going to be the course of, what we discuss with John today on, his insight on ways that he's been able to, overcome certain traumatic events and in dealing with that on a daily basis. And I want everyone to keep in mind that, when we do this show, I want to have interaction with all of you. Okay. We need feedback, ask questions. If there's ways that, maybe we can answer a question for you of the different things that you're going through, that's what we're here for. That's what this show is about. That's why the different individuals that come on here that have the passions about, ending the stigma and smashing the stigma, that it is okay to ask for help. It is okay to say that everything is not okay. Because, a lot of us, we walk around and it becomes a facade after a while that, oh, hey, I can take this, I can handle this. When in fact, the traumas that first responders are exposed to day after day after day, and not even just day after day, it's call to call. So they may be responding to a call, and before they can even process of what they just witnessed, whether it was a domestic dispute to where they just, seen someone being raped or killed, pulling a baby from a dumpster, and then just going to another call that could be another traumatic event that weighs so heavy on an individual, and especially with the first responders. Okay. So that's what we're here to talk about. We're here to address certain issues, sit there and talk about how even the minute things may weigh heavier on one individual than the next. Okay. So now let's go ahead and get into it. And I want to bring John on. And hey, John, good evening. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
I'm blessed. It's a pleasure having you. And I kind of gave the little intro and everything else about what you're going to be sharing, how the things affect. And that's why, I'm so grateful that you allot us the time to kind of speak with you, because this is a real issue. And, we really do need to smash the stigma. So, it's going to take individuals, leaders, mentors like yourself to be comfortable to come out and kind of explain certain things that, you yourself have been through. That, yes, of course, it does affect you. You're a human being, and the ways that you're able to overcome that and, progress forward and everything else.
Yes, sir. Anything I can do to help, I'm good with.
Oh, and I just want to say before we get started, by the way, is that I love the new cover photo. It's great.
In my room at the police department.
Yes, sir. And it's one of them things, though. I mean, because every day, and again, going into what I was leading into starting this, is that if we can't laugh about it or find some kind of good humor, there's just so much shit within that shit show that's just going to weigh somebody down, and it's already heavy on what you bear. You don't need to make it any heavier. So
no, and the bad part is, people that's not in a first responder or stressful situation can see our sense of humor as bad or wrong, but also don't see the stuff we actually have to deal with, that we have to work with.
Right. And it's not even just that, John. I mean, we may be able to turn our TVs on and see some of the different things that they choose to provide to us. We may watch the movies and kind of experience that. You can watch a movie and kind of get some kind of feeling inside about, you know, how that affects you, but no, in the civilian sector, there are next to none that can really understand the complexity of what every law enforcement officer, every first responder is exposed to every day. You know, it's always easy from the sidelines to say, "Oh, hey, John shouldn't be joking about things like that." But it's like, have you been exposed to what John's been exposed to? You know?
Yeah, and it's not that some of this stuff we mean bad. It's really not. It's some stuff to help us stay sane without being disrespectful.
Yes, sir. And then, so do you want to go into, because you know, one of the things that I want to cover in here, you know, again, you know, because I try to bring the realities out, that way individuals are able to kind of grasp a little bit of the exposure and how much more like PTSI affects first responders and military than the general public, why those rates are so high, statistics are so high, you know, and pay has a lot to do with it as well too. That, you know, and we'll get into that. And you know, people say that, hey, they signed up for that and they signed up for that sacrifice, but you didn't have to. You know what I mean? You took a pay cut, and that's what I want to kind of get into here after a while, as far as the passions that you have to provide for myself and my family and, you know, others alike, that you made that sacrifice to do that because you had that calling, you had that passion. So if you kind of want to get into, you know, early life on what kind of like led into your decisions to go in.
Um, I had started working within a couple of months of being 16, and I actually started at camp at Walmart. You know, I guess due to my work ethic, they had actually got me on full time, and I stayed there for I believe it was around 6.5 years. I did all different departments, all the way up to management, which I guess having that kind of responsibility will kind of bleed over into law enforcement. You have to have a certain dedication and a certain passion to a job to even, you know, consider something like law enforcement. Um, you can't go into it blind. Hey, you know, man, I'd like to be an officer because it's cool. People look up to it. You know, I'm important doing that. You can't do it or you won't last. I've seen it many times. Um, and yeah, you're right. I had got on with the sheriff's office, the local sheriff's office, and I did. I took a pay cut from my Walmart job. You know, from a minor management position to law enforcement, I took a pay cut. It doesn't seem like that should be right, but you know it is. People don't understand that, and it is. If you're going from the responsibility with the pay, people wouldn't do this job. It's more than just the pay. It's it's really a passion. You've got to know what you're doing. You've got to like what you're doing, and want to make a difference. It's not just it's not just a job to do to give me my paycheck every 2 weeks, because you will not last. You will not be happy, and it'll really leave a bad taste in your mouth because you're not doing what you think you signed up for. I've seen it.
And then what kind of, you know, because there's interests or hobbies, or I mean, because again, that passion has to be there. So there has to be some kind of commonality that kind of fits the role per se. You know, so you know, what kind of drove you into that? Was there family? Was there friends? Was it just because of your own passions of wanting to help individuals and make that difference? Or, you know, what kind of like led into that as far as with you saying that? Because again, it wasn't for the pay, obviously, because you took the pay cut. But what kind of aspirations and passions did you have that you said, hey, you know what, I want to make a difference? When was that calling?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you the exact moment. I remember knowing I had to get away from Walmart. That wasn't going anywhere. I had a long run there, but I knew it wasn't going anywhere. My dad was a deputy, and at the time he had been about 26 years, I believe. And a little side note that's kind of funny. I was talking to my dad a while back, and he told them, 25 years in, you could retire when he was working. It's changed now, but 25 years you could go. I think he was 47 when he finally retired. But he told some of his coworkers that when my 25 years is up, you better get out of my way. If you're standing between me and the door, I will run you over to get out of here. 2.5 years later, he's still doing it. It kind of come down to, hey, I've done this for 25, 26, 27 years. I don't know what I'll do without it. And when
and,
I
and
got
and that's strong there, and I'm glad you said it like that too, because that camaraderie is the same thing that happens with individuals in the military. A lot of times it isn't even the traumatic events that someone was exposed to; it's that loss of family, as of a sense, that you get when you're in law enforcement, you get when we're in military and everything else, to where it is that I don't know what I'm going to do without this. I mean, that's my family.
yeah, and it's kind of sad, and I really don't know how to put it, but I think there's and I really think there's still the same. There's 20 deputies on the road with the sheriff's office, and I believe it's the same as now, which is really sad. From early 2000s to prior to that, we've still got the same amount of deputies in our county than we did then, and we both know that our crime rate and what's going on is a whole lot different now. But it's most of the people that he worked with is retired now. But it's your family, you've got 15, 20 people you're friends with, your family you've worked forever with. But it comes down to when you do take yourself out of that situation. I don't want to say you lose those friends, but you will grow apart. You can say you're not, and you may still to a certain extent, but you will grow apart. You've both got different things going on. You're not working together every day, and it's really sad. It really is that happens, but it's not really an intentional thing.
And then now, with because I know one of the events in your life that kind of affected you and stuck with you was with your mother. Now, was that something that happened prior to going in? Was it during the break? Was it? I mean, how did that transpire? As far as what point were you in your life when that happened? Because I know it was a major effect on you. So at what place were you in law enforcement at that time, or was it something that kind of?
Um, no, and kind of a lead up. I really don't know how to associate this with my job, but my mom had for a long time had some alcohol and drug problems. Yeah, and I'm sure subconsciously that did have some kind of effect on me and what I do. You know,
Wanting to make a difference.
yeah, and to pinpoint it, I couldn't, but I know it did have that effect. Um, and this is something I'm going to touch on in just a little bit, but I have problems with time frames. Um, I graduated in 2002 when I was 17, so 2003-ish, she passed away because I was 18. I didn't start law enforcement till 2007. Um, and a lot of people can view this as it, and I believe it too. I don't handle severe situations like that well. I put it out of my mind. That's my coping mechanism. And with her, we didn't have a close enough relationship as we should have, and that's really my fault. Um, Even though there was stuff going on there, but I put it out of my mind, and maybe a year or two down the road, I'm putting my life in my eyes. I'm I'm a teenager. I'm 20. I've got my friends. I've got this stuff going on, and it really preoccupied my mind. But once I really opened up to what it was, I mean, I broke in a big way. It's all that time that I was ignoring it comes back in a hurry to me. It really bit me, and if if I had accepted it and processed it to start with, I think I would have been better because I would have spread those feelings out than hitting me at one time. But I do believe that her issues had an impact with what I do. And since I've been doing this job, I have actually been able to help people with those kind of issues. And that's really more rewarding than just taking somebody to jail and making them have a record. Now, given some people need it, I'm not going to say you don't find some satisfaction in some of those, but it is nice that you actually make a positive change in somebody's life, especially when you can associate that with a personal experience.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, I was prior to my law enforcement when all that happened, and
But I'm sure it does play an effect, whether it's subconsciously or intentionally, to where, when you're running into the Johns or the suspects and things like that, are having that, especially when it becomes to a specific issue that, correlates with, issues, that mom had, so, and wanting to make that difference. And, during our last broadcast, you were talking about the gentleman that, you had the conversation with, on the way to the station. And that's powerful. And it's the same thing with the individuals that, because, a lot of times, like with the understanding of drugs, alcohol, and not even just drugs and alcohol, but a lot of times different events traumatic events we experience in our lives can cause us to act in a way that otherwise we would not act. You know what I mean? And, for you to be able to kind of get them to pause for a minute and kind of have that general conversation, that is the way to make a difference in somebody's life, and, sometimes that jail cell is needed for that little time out so they can kind of sit down and think about things. And with that being said, when you're the one taking them to the station and the general conversation that you're having with them, going in, it's going to be the last conversation that they remember, so it is going to be something that does have the opportunity to stick with them, to actually go in and kind of really make that difference in their lives,
it is, and sometimes it needs to be that combination. I could talk to somebody and make an impact, whereas I could also talk to somebody while I'm taking them to jail, and that combination really makes it ring. This is what I should be doing, and this is the consequences that if I don't, rather than I should probably be doing this. He's right, but it's easier to do this. Why should I change?
And then, so how much, with that being said, because again, you're in law enforcement because of the passion about wanting to really make a difference in an individual's life. How because with behavior analysis, when I do my studies, as and everything, but, the way that I look at it is that, just as a first responder can have survivor's guilt, how does it play when you're arresting the same subject multiple times, the multiple time offenders, repeat offenders, and things like that. And I mean, does that affect you at all? I mean, because I know there's no like personal connection with you in the the subjects and things like that, but in a sense, when you're just seeing, like, again, going into the when we go into the career of me choosing to be a law enforcement officer and me wanting and having an optimistic view on things, and then just seeing just the repeatedness, it does put that, because all you're seeing every day, I mean, and all the viewers at home, they need to understand that law enforcement and, I mean, first responders in general, even military, you're seeing the bottom 5, 3, 10% of society. So it's not like you're not responding to a 911 call because somebody's having a birthday party, But I mean, you might respond to a 911 for a birthday party, but still, it's a, you know what I mean? It's not. You're not responding because people. Yeah, you're not responding because people are having a good time. It's you're responding to, chaos. So I mean, does that play a role when you're seeing like the same individual? I mean, does it affect you as far as I'm not going to say the faith in humanity, but it has to play when your service is to make that difference. How do you view that?
Well, and it can be beyond an officer's view sometimes, but if you think about it, if I'm having to deal with you because of a call, you're not dealing with me the best day of your life. You're having issues of why you need to talk to me. You're not calling the police department because you want to have a friendly conversation and tell me how your kid did in school. I mean, it's a different, it's a whole different aura of how that plays out, and it does. If you with any job really, you can become somewhat numb to what goes on, and you dull yourself. Your emotions are not the same. Your cares are not the same, and you need a reality check. And I've been the same way. Oh man, they're calling again. This is stupid. This is they need to get along. This has been and I recently dealt with this within the last few days. Man, this has been going on since I've worked here, but I still try to, hey, y'all been fighting for 6 years. I'm sick of this. This is stupid. But I can still hear well, this is why I end up in this situation. And I still try to tell them, why? Why are you doing this? You know what happens. You know how both of you are. It's not working. It's not getting along. And really, I do it without thinking about it. You know, it's been 6 years. I could say, screw this. I don't care. I'm not helping you. You're not helping yourself. But I guess just the kind of person I am, I end up trying to give advice before I'm even thinking about it. And that's what I told him. I said, why are you doing this? You know what happens. Why are you doing this? Instead of just saying, get out of here. This is the same thing over and over. And people can let that get to them. Man, I'm tired of dealing with them. This is stupid. I don't care. But what happens when that call comes in and you're thinking, man, this is all the time. This is stupid. I'm not going. They don't need me. They've never needed me. But something happens. Somebody gets hurt. Something bad happens. Not only are we liable, but that comes into affecting you possibly permanently. I didn't do as much as I could. It's my fault they got hurt. It's my fault this happened. And it's easy
Kind
to
of survivor's guilt we were just talking about, huh?
exactly. And I mean, how do you live with that? You've dealt with them so many times. It's always been stupid. You're sick of dealing with them. You don't like them, but because you did neglect your job, and depending on what kind of person you neglected yourself, and now somebody's ended up in this situation. I mean, it's regardless of how you feel about them and your past history, that can greatly affect you depending on what happens. It's you're going to look at it. It's your fault. Had you stepped up, had you done this wouldn't have played out that way. And on top of all the stress, everything we deal with, I mean, man, that's a killer in yourself.
And then have there been any events, as you just spoke of, that have kind of stuck with you, regardless of from the beginning, or is there something that, you still even like today carry with you or anything? Or, I mean, are there certain events that, still play in your mind that's, no matter what you've done, it's still like kind of, you'll get that flash?
In general, all in all, I've had a very, very, I don't want to say easy career, but a very good career as far as having to deal with very bad situations that could be prevented, or even in just bad situations that stick with you. Now, I have a lot of calls that do stick with me, but I've been lucky in the sense that I'm not thinking about, man, this is my fault. Had I done this wouldn't happen. Had I done this would have played out that way. I've really been lucky, and a very large amount of law enforcement officers can't say that. And it may be that I go to my next shift and that completely changes. But there are things that stick out to me. But luckily, I try to handle things as best I can to where it is in my mind. If I do this, if I don't do this, this could happen. But it still doesn't always play out that way.
Yeah, and then I know with your department that it's a smaller department, and so how does that play on your hours. And many individuals at home viewing really don't realize how the actual shifts affect family life. It's kind of null and void to us. We take for granted that we can call and somebody's going to respond. We really don't understand that that one responding has probably been on a 12, 15-hour shift. And, it does affect of, them being able to come home, go home, spend time with family and things like that. Have there ever been any kind of like, personal issues, misunderstandings about the shifts and, the time that you're serving to fulfill one passion so that you can provide the other passion for the family?
I am divorced. I have been for several years, but me and her have a very good relationship. We don't fight. We co-parent. We can actually go places with our son and not have fights, not have issues. But I also believe some of that on top of personally trying to make that happen. She is an RN, which is, for those that don't know, registered nurse, which is a very stressful job as well. So there was kind of that understanding that I know what kind of stress you go to in your job. I don't know the exact call, but I know the things I go through. And I'm sure you go through similar things. So there was a very good understanding of the shifts and the work and the stress. And it was actually, I live about 45 minutes away from my work. So as a normal person, I have a room at the police department I can stay at. It's not a jail cell. It's not a metal cot. So it's not as bad as it sounds, but um, do I not stay there? I have a 45-minute drive home. So you're looking at a 12-hour shift, an hour and a half round trip. I'm looking at, a minimum of 13 and a half hours. And that's a minimum. And that usually doesn't happen. But it can affect you really bad. And she as well, she actually had about a 90-minute one-way trip to work. So we really had a good understanding of how things were and how it can affect you, whereas a lot of people don't. Their significant other works retail or works an office job or works wherever, that is a completely different career, completely different job, and they don't understand why are you stressed out? Why are you coming home mad? Why are you coming home sad? Why are you so tired or any of that? They don't understand, and that really will cause problems because you cannot relay your feelings to them. They can't comprehend it. They listen to what you're saying, but they can't comprehend
And
why.
on top of that as well too, and kind of going into the whole passion aspect of everything, so where you already have on top of that the pay scale, which is ridiculous for every first responder across the board. I mean, people really need to kind of like look at the national average on what any first responder gets paid. It's ridiculous, But so you have the pay cut. Now you're sitting here looking at, hey, I'm willing to drive, 45 minutes, and with her the 90 minutes, to get there, one way, so that just shows into the passion of, really wanting to make the difference in another individual's life, and, wanting to be able to give your all, and then coming home with, being tired and things like that and having stress at home. It's some of the things that's out of sight, out of mind to a lot of individuals. And it's one of the things that's really kind of taken for granted that we do have the access to pick the phone up to call and have somebody respond. It's a shame that, a lot of individuals really don't know the personal side of everything of like, how, you're a human being too. You have your emotions, you have your stresses, you have your family and stuff like that, to where it's vital that, we have this conversation right now, kind of expose the realities to individuals so that they can, wake up and understand that, you're going through things just as we are. And on top of that, you got to stay on top of your game to deal with every call, deal with the, the bottom of the, I don't want to, put anybody down, but the bottom of the barrel. I mean, it's the worst days rather, you know what I mean? So I can't even, I could go on for days talking about that, so.
And I've got something for the viewers to think about. you work in a first responder setting, which is the stress and everything we just talked about. Do you, when you have a spouse, significant other, whatever it may be, that doesn't understand it, what do you do? On one hand, you try to go home, you try to explain to them what's going on, why you feel this way, why this is this way. They don't get it. It's frustrating. It can cause a lot of bad emotions and not mean to. Or do you take the less stressful way and go home and not try to explain it, try to, you know, act normal, for lack of better words, but what's happened is just eating you up inside?
Hmm.
I mean, which one of those do you do when they just can't comprehend and understand what's going on?
Right. And then, so what are some of the bigger issues that you see with the brothers and sisters you serve with, or even yourself? I mean, if you want to kind of talk about some of the things that kind of weigh heavy on you and the ways that you deal with them, just so that because there's going to be thousands, if not millions, of individuals that are probably experiencing the same thing you are, and we're all going to find different ways to be able to have a coping mechanism. So, what kind of works for you, and like what kind of things do you see that weigh heavier, on the brothers and sisters in the force, and others on the surrounding counties and cities that you may contact as well.
It really all starts with the person. Just like I know, every person is different. Every person thinks differently, acts differently, and then add the job to it. So one person may deal well with it, take another person in the same situation, and they can't. And when they don't know how to find an outlet, it just doubles everything that's going on. And that's one of the big things. You've got to find somewhere where you can have an outlet, or you can find something you really enjoy that kind of counteracts the negative effects that you have. And the people that don't know how to do that, it will eat them up. It will cause personal problems. It will cause them to be a, I want to say, bad or negative law enforcement officer, because the more it eats them up, the more it tears away the person they was, and they won't handle situations the same way. And it's an easy downward spiral, and it is hard to break, and it is hard to recover from when that happens.
Then, so what are some of the methods that you use to keep your mind fresh, to kind of, I'm not going to say reinstill excitement into your life, but because it's like you just stated, if you ignore and ignore and ignore, it's just going to magnify everything that really is there because it was never really dealt with. And then it could just come back and, it'll weigh even heavier on you because it was never dealt with the first time. Plus, you have the new event or the new trauma that's now weighing heavy on as well. So, what are your suggestions, or what works for you, John? So that way, just to keep your mind fresh every day that you go out there, because again, you're going in every day knowing that it's not an if, there's going to be a call.
The ones that try to put it off, you know, I'm fine. I've got this. This is cool, man. This job's no problem. Right up until the point they break. And when they break, it is hard to come back from it. Um, and everybody has that different way of coping healthy. And honestly, the way I work and the way I have my kid, and you know, the job can make you not enjoy your personal things as much. Even the kids, they could say, "I love my kids. I love spending time with them." But when you let yourself get to that certain point, you do still love them. You do still enjoy stuff with them, but that enjoyment will decrease because these things do weigh on you. They do take away from your mind when it should be with your kid, or even anything that you usually enjoy or used to enjoy. It will take that away from you, and it's not the same. And it's done it to me, and it's done it for different reasons than some people do. But a big savior for me is me and my dispatcher have a very close relationship. And one, it's one of my very few friends. Um, as you grow older, all your best friends, all your great friends grow apart. Yes, you get older, you get busy, your priorities change, and before you know it, you're like, man, where did everybody go? You just feel like you don't have anywhere to turn to. And I've been lucky in that we are very good friends, and being in the same line of work, we understand each other. We know kind of what's going on and how it affects you, and possible ways to help you through it. And that's one of my things that's really helped me out more so than things I can do when I'm off duty, is that understanding that we can help each other through. And when all your best friends and people you grew up with are not there anymore, that really means a lot.
It is huge, and like with her being a dispatch, okay, it's that's another role that is completely overlooked of someone that experiences trauma and has a lot of stress and depression and anxiety. You got to figure they're in a role to where all they are doing is taking call after call after call after call of negatives, and they never get a resolve because not many people come back and share that, oh, hey, everything turned out well, they're alive and well, or this, that, or the other. They're just left in the dark, and there's so many possibilities of what could have gone wrong, or if somebody died, if somebody lived. And you know I myself can't imagine living with that. But it's dispatchers are one of the most overlooked individuals in the first responder field, and it's sad because they're the ones that are actually, if they yawned or didn't feel like pushing that button, or getting the mic to call for you to actually be dispatched out, you know everything would be nothing. They're the key to all first responders. I mean, that's the reality of it, and it's sad that
They to put it as simple as you can, they're the lifeline. They are, in all honesty, the first person that will keep somebody safe, alive, and whether it be the caller, me, um, you know, you've got somebody that I don't care. It's a check. I get paid shitty, whatever. I'm just here. Well, you take that call. Well, you've got a fight. It's a domestic. Go to it. And we all know some of those will do that. They will take the basic that they can, send you to it. But what they're not getting is it's an entire family fighting. They have a violent history. They have, weapons involved. One of them has been stabbed, but they don't care, so they don't ask that information. And I mean, that makes a world of difference. Medical calls. You've got somebody with chest pains. Okay, well, what you're not asking is, they've had 3 heart attacks before. That makes a big difference in chest pains, and can be, you know, how fast do I need to get there? What equipment do I need to get there? They can make it sound like it's nothing when it's really a life or death situation, and they're not they're not respected, they're not appreciated. Where I can go on a call, smooth it out, thank you. The gentleman that I had got to stop drinking, get a job, help himself, thank you. This is what I've done. This is because of you. You rarely ever see anybody tell a dispatcher that, thank you for the way you handled this. This made a difference in my life. They're just taken for granted. They really are. And officers don't make enough, and it is ridiculous to even think what dispatchers will get paid for. And they're one of the most important. They really are a first responder, even though they do not physically respond to that call. They are responding to what's going on.
and
And
on top of that, I mean, if the viewers can just pretend for a minute and think about a call coming in. I don't care what it is, of how cognizant a dispatcher has to be. They have to know the environment. They have to know, how frantic one individual is the other people in the home, is like you just said, do they have past medical issues and things like that. And then still, while maintaining and trying to keep them calm, at the same time trying to dispatch the proper parties out to, that home. Is it just, law enforcement going out there? Do we need law enforcement, paramedic, fire? I mean, it's just, there's so many things toggling on just one call that it takes a special individual to even sit in a dispatcher's chair and put on that headset. It's insane. I mean, people can't fathom, how much information has to be processed on every call that they take. And again, every call that they take is it's a disturbance. I mean, they're not. Hey, I just wanted to call and wish you happy birthday, John.
Yeah, exactly. And people that don't understand the job or not familiar with it, they're looking at, they took a call, one call. That's not bad. What they don't understand is they are having to get information. Why is this going on? What weapons are involved? Why are you fighting? How many people? I've got to dispatch my officer at the same time I'm trying to calm this frantic person and get information, and I have to contact, responders or fire department, which is a whole separate thing. People look at, they took a call. I mean, how difficult is that?
And that is the mentality of a lot of individuals. And it's sad. It really is sad.
It is, and just take. It really makes a big difference for somebody to care. Like you said, we don't get paid enough. There's something in us that makes us do this job. A dispatcher is even more so because they get paid much less, and they can deal maybe not as physically dangerous situations, but just as stressful, if not more, because we're responding to the call with the information we have, and we're handling the call. Whereas when that call comes into them, they don't know. They are having to process so much more information that we have to when we show up, because we have that information already because of them.
100%. And bear with me for one moment. First responder national median is $27,000 a year. That's insane.
And that's an average.
That's an average. So that's you're taking some of the different more luxurious and higher economies in some of the bigger cities, everything else too. So not every, I mean, there's some law enforcement agencies that are paying their officers $12.50, $13 an hour. And that's a slap in the face for, what's being done. So.
It is. And if people didn't have that certain thing in them that made them want to do this job, you wouldn't have anybody do it. I'm not doing it because I'm making a killing, because I'm not. I'm working 2 jobs. I'm working night shift and I go straight into a day shift. I don't do that because I want to stay awake and I don't like sleep. I don't like a personal life. And at one point, and it may come back up, our entire police department was working 3 jobs. We would our shift, we work a day a week, which, I mean, it doesn't seem bad, but look at me, I go from a night shift to a day shift. That's rough, even though it doesn't sound it, because we had a bank get robbed, actually multiple times over a time span. But so every day they have one of us working security, and when you only have 6 officers to do that every single week, that can get, tiring. And we, about 2 years ago, got a Google facility in our city.
Huh.
And when they do construction, there is a massive amount of construction workers when your town is only 2,500 people. You've nearly got that many people working construction. So we would have to work 3 hours in the morning with 3 slots for traffic control, In the afternoons, we had 4 officers for 3 hours. Add in, you've got 6 officers, maybe 7, and you've got 4 slots you've got to fill every single afternoon. You've got 3 slots you've got to fill every single morning. And hey, great money. I have no life. I have no energy, but it's got to be done.
Nobody else is doing it.
Yeah. And
That's
hey,
those are the ones that always have something to say too. The ones that wouldn't be willing to make that sacrifice, put the badge on, and go out there and do it. It's the John, what you should be doing different is
and I will say this: when we work the construction, and they still have I want to say give or take maybe 5 years worth of construction left, but the last 2 years they haven't done it because of COVID or other jobs they have, which it's a break, but it's also a lot of money we're not making. But in the mornings, we don't have to get out and work traffic. We sit in our vehicles with lights going to slow people down, to let them know, hey, look, this is high construction area. Easy money, right? I work 12 hours. I go straight, given my shift did work out very well, but I work 12 hours. Now I'm going into another 3 hour shift. Now I have 45-minute drive just to get home, then another 45-minute drive to go back to my 12-hour shift with another 3 hours on top of it. It starts sounding a little less luxurious than you think.
100%. And so, with that being said, I mean, because that's important in the whole mental health aspect of what you and I are discussing right now, because it's when does John give John time?
And it's hard for some people to understand, but the more physically exhausted you are, the harder it is to unwind and process the bad things that you've had to deal with, because your
There's a
mind's
lot of
fried.
times even going, I mean, even though you may be exhausted and tired because of how you've just been running and running and running, it's hard to sleep. So that's what I'm just trying to, how do you do it?
I wish I had an answer for you, because I'm still trying to no, I think it plays into the mental health issues, which I want to go in just a little bit, but the last since Tuesday at about, we'll say 11 o'clock in the afternoon until now, I've had about 4 hours of sleep. And it's not necessarily because I've been so busy. It's just the fact that I go to sleep and I wake up and I can't go back. It's just a physical thing. I can't. My body won't let me, or I wake up thinking about something, and people don't understand that plays into it. Hey, he's only had a few hours of sleep. That he's still good to go. He slept. I don't understand how that would change his mentality or how he can handle things. It makes the cause worse. It makes your attitude worse, and it can make you care less from a situation you would normally have a passion for, you would normally care for. Man, I just want to handle this call and get off of it. I really don't care how I have to finish it up. I just want to. And I mean, how do you really relay that to people that can affect you that way? Because it's
And
not.
I appreciate your honesty in this, because that is a big, big, big issue. And, again, going back to the smashing the stigma aspect of it, a lot of people, I mean, especially in law enforcement, we have to carry a persona that, hey, this doesn't affect me. Hey, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. But there has to be that breaking point of self-admission that, hey, this is really getting to me, whether it's the things you've seen, whether it is the physicality and just the exhaustion that comes with the role. I mean, it's just, and my kudos to you and this is what it takes as leaders like yourself to be able to say, hey, there are those days where shit bothers me and I do get tired. And like you just said, 4 hours sleep in just a few days is just, it's insane. I mean,
It,
And then you're even still giving us time to be able to share these certain things with it about how it bothers, or you could be resting right now and just completely disregard. And again, that just goes and shows your passions that you are willing to take the time to address these issues, expose yourself to it, and I mean, it's what needs to be done. And again, my gratitude, time and time again to you.
and you're right. I could be, given my body lets me, I could be sleeping or resting, but sometimes I put others, before me. Yeah, I could be resting. I'm helping myself. Whereas I can be on, this show and talking about stuff, and I could help multiple people. Versus, you know, there's one of me, but I'm helping a lot of other people by doing this. That kind of makes it worth it to me. And one, I want to simplify this, really simplify this. People that don't understand what we go through, how we feel, how tired we are, you can't see it. They can't see it, so it's hard to understand. You don't look tired. You look fine. I am barely awake, but you don't understand it. And I mean, that's really a lot of people. If I can't physically see something and tell because of it, I don't understand why it's there, why it's like that.
And that's huge though too, because again, it's the what if you made that decision that, hey, you know what, because of how tired I am, I don't feel like going in today, or hey, I don't feel like going to this call. I mean, that's a large scale, that's a large responsibility, and it's a lot of weight that is carried. Because then that plays in the back of the mind, well, hey, if I do make the decision not to go in today, or I don't want to respond to this call, who that's going to affect and the magnitude of how that could affect somebody, because you know in this profession seconds matter a lot of times. I mean, I'm not going to say a lot of times, almost in every case seconds matter. So if it's that just dragging out and feeling exhausted, I mean, it really needs to be acknowledged, it really needs to be spoken about, and it's okay that exhaustion happens. It's going to happen. I mean, almost every law enforcement agency across the nation experiences it, where they're having 12, 15-hour days. And then, like, individuals like yourself that are driving 45 hours, to get there, where, I mean, yeah, granted, you are blessed with a room that you could go lay down in, but it's still, playing that whole mental pressure on there. And it's just that it's amazing that, you're able to do what you do. And it's even more amazing that you're able to sit here and talk to us about this, because these are the little things well, I'm not going to say little things, but, it seems little, but play on such a more larger scale, to where in a career to where seconds matter, being that exhausted and not addressing that or acknowledging that, or, taking time for yourself, it becomes a bigger issue.
And, and the scary thing about it is, I know and I have worked with officers that have done just what you said. It's called stupid. I'm not going to it. That stupid call can turn out bad, and you refuse to go to it. Um, I don't feel like going to this medical call. I'm taking my time. Given you don't want to risk your health for every single call that you get, that you don't have to get there as soon as you can. But, man, this is stupid. I'm not a medic. I'm going to stop and get me a cup of coffee. I'm going to use the bathroom. Well, guess what? While you're dicking off, taking your time, that person has just took their last breath, and you're not there to help them. It's something so small, hey, I'm taking my time, where it really can be life and death. They took their last breath, and I'm over here driving 30 mile an hour because I don't give a shit about a medical call.
That's that's reality, and it's like so many people, because they don't see it there in front of them, it's something that's out of sight of their mind. And it's the same like buffoons that you'll see sirens coming behind you, and whatever they're doing is more important, where they can't pull over, or let emergency vehicle pass them. It's little things like that that just runs through a buffoon's mind, that they think that, hey, what I'm doing is so much more important than going and actually making this happen. So it's
It's an inconvenience to me. I don't care about anybody else. It is a mind frame that a lot of people have, and they think it's mundane because it's not them needing help. It's
Right.
not them needing something. It's somebody else, and I'm more important than they are.
And it could be their family member. They just don't know it.
Exactly. And once it affects them personally, then it's a whole different world. But when it's the exact same situation as somebody they don't know, it's no big deal. And that's I hate to say it, but that's majority of the people now. If it doesn't affect them, if it's not a family member, then they don't think it's a big deal. They don't care.
And
Why all of a sudden this is a family member? Why all of a sudden now does it matter? It's the
right.
exact same situation with somebody else, but
You know,
because it affects
and
you.
that also plays into the aspect of what we were talking about earlier when it comes to like the our dispatchers, to where like letting us know about other individuals in the area and things like that, and you're going to a call, you're tired, you're frustrated, you're exhausted, and now you have individuals that aren't even part of the call, standing around. So now you have to be cognizant of your surroundings and everything else too. You're exhausted, and there's so much that is entailed within every call, and then being exhausted and not really addressing being exhausted, or having things thinking about back home instead of thinking about the call that you're on right now. It affects it on such a large scale that in the civilian sector, when they're standing there, or doing things that are ultimately putting your life at risk, or the others' lives who you're trying to save at risk. It's kind of the out of sight, out of mind, where, hey, it don't apply to me, they're not responding to me, but it's still, they're ultimately affecting that call. So I mean, have you had any instances to where the spectators per se affected the call that you were responding to, or any kind of like critical incidents in that aspect?
Other than just not getting out of the way, I haven't really had outside people affect the call. But you'll have a bad wreck. Just specifically, when my dad had, it was a young girl and she was laying there dying. There was nothing they could do for her, but people are standing around watching like it's a ball game. That was a family member or a friend. Now all of a sudden they're offended because people are watching it.
Right.
It's the same situation. But um and I kind of want to address this. It's somewhat off subject, but it's not at the same time. You're talking about stress and being worn out physically, mentally. Um, Mental health, especially, a lot of officers will deal with things like depression. Um, the being depressed is not depression.
Right.
You know, it's I'm sad.
Clinical depression and depression.
Yeah, I'm sad because a family member passed away, and it does affect you. It really does. But and given everything I'm saying right now is an opinion, or it's something I've went through. So it's not, people may disagree, people may have different experiences, but it's just me. Um, Depression is kind of something that can get better over time. Things can get easier. I can work through them. Legitimate depression will not get better on its own. You
Right.
need you need help. You need therapy to talk about what's going on. You need medication to help. You know, a chemical imbalance in your brain is not going to fix itself. You need to figure out what it is to help yourself. And and people don't understand. Why are you sad? I've been there before. When I first started dealing with depression, I had my own house was paid off, nice house. I had, I believe, three cars and a motorcycle paid off. I had it made. It was great to everybody else, but due to my depression, I didn't view it the same as everybody else. It was nice, not having to worry about bills and struggling, but at the same time, I was miserable. And you cannot relay why people that don't deal with that. It's not just don't be sad, you've got it so good. It's my brain will not allow me to feel these ways. And it's hard to tell people, how that is. They can't understand it. And as far as being worn out, depression and mental disorders will wear you out on its own. Take away all the stress of the job, the long hours, the small amount of sleep, that mental health that you can't help yourself, you already deal with, wears you out on top of everything else. It makes everything worse. And it's just, like I said, it's hard for people to understand that, I'm already wore out. My depression wears me out. I may not do anything physical. I may be getting plenty of sleep. When I first started having issues, undiagnosed issues, I could get a full night's sleep, and I work day shift. I could get a full night's sleep. I would almost pass out at noon. I couldn't tell you why. Now I know, but I can't stay awake, and it's due to issues beyond my control. Nothing that you can see that I'm doing, nothing that I can make you understand, but just the mental health in itself it'll wear you out.
And I want to step in real quick. I want you to finish up on this, but I want to step in real quick because, you know, thank you for saying that, hey, it's your opinion and it's not fact, but that is a fact. Everything you just stated, it is medical fact. Okay. There is a difference between depression and clinical depression. An individual can be depressed and it's going to be a come and go type thing. But depression is something that is always going to be there to where you could be out there to where something would, I'd be euphoric experiencing what you were doing, riding your bike or anything else like that. But with clinical depression, it's the normal joys that and the normal euphoria that the human being experiences in happy moments. It doesn't exist. So there's a big difference, and a lot of people do get it misconstrued that, oh, I just deal with depression. Well, no, you probably have something going on to where clinical depression is your body does not, you don't have the serotonins that actually get released so you can actually experience that euphoria. And it does have to be controlled with medication. It does have to be controlled with therapy. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that. Individuals can still fulfill functioning lives by undergoing that treatment, undergoing the medication, undergoing, that balance there to where they can again, and it's not going to be a snap of the finger and it's not going to be that full enjoyment as if they didn't, were not diagnosed with clinical depression. But that isn't the real deal. So, I just wanted to clear that up for everybody at home. And I appreciate you saying, John, that, it was your opinion, but, it is reality. It is medical fact and everything else as well, too. So, and like you said, you have that, and then you stack on top of that, the exhaustion. You stack on top of that every traumatic call you have to, respond to and everything else, too. It's the, how do you balance that out?
And from my own experience, I'll give a little background before I go into anything else. I started having issues. I always felt something was a little off. I couldn't tell you why. When I was growing up, something just felt a little off. My mom passed away when I was 18, so I never really got that adult relationship that I could understand things that I really should. I honestly believe that she.
Hey, something's going on with your mic right now. There's like back feed or something like that. I don't know if something got changed or.
Is it still messed up?
Yeah, it's like an echoing.
What about now?
I can hear you. It's just I don't know what happened. It's.
I'm not sure what happened. Is it still doing it?
Yes, we can hear you. That's the important part. It's just like the level went down to where it's not as clear as it was. I just wanted to.
Okay. I'll try to sum it up, but
No, no, that's fine. I mean, we can hear you now. So
it when I started having issues, I didn't know what it was. I couldn't tell you. I knew something was off. Then I started realizing that I was depressed, and I went to a family doctor. All right, well, here's some medication. Take it. It's not working. Give it time. It's not working. Give it time. Look, it's not, and I'm miserable, and you're not able to do what you should. I didn't actually get help until I started going to an actual psychiatrist, and he understood more what was going on. The first medication he put me on, within a couple of weeks, I could feel it. And I'm lucky. A lot of people can't have that kind of success, and even now, I still go through phases, and if something changes and I do start getting that depressed feeling, I usually go monthly, which is a little farther out now, but that month can feel like forever when you feel like that. And there's nothing you can do. You can't change those feelings. Um,
and
but
then how open, like with your department, let's just say, like the fellow brothers and sisters that you serve with and everything else too, because I feel it's important that who I serve with knows if things, but because it's going to be that person that could be the lifesaver if I'm really having one of those bad days. Because a lot of people really don't understand depression. You'll get the people that are uneducated in how severe depression can be, and oh, hey, just fucking deal with it and get over it. And it's really not that easy because with depression, it's clinical. There is no joy in certain things, and then again with everything stacking on top of that. So, I mean, do you share that with the fellow brothers and sisters that you serve with as well too, so that they can kind of talk to them, or is it more on you keep it with a personal side, like what works? I mean, because for everybody's going to be different as well too. So it's the what works for you as far as I know you say that you go monthly and things like that, and sometimes that month just seems so far out. So what do you do for John, during that course to keep it, as best as possible?
um, with my current department, I'm extremely lucky. My chief, my assistant chief, they're understanding. I can talk to them. Hey, what's going on? They know everything, and I'll clarify this. I am diagnosed with bipolar depression, but I have my issues. I have my times. There's times when things are miserable, but it really hasn't affected my job. It really hasn't affected how I can treat people and handle situations. And I think part of that does come down to what kind of person are they to start with. Um, your personality, your attitude, the things that you want will affect how you feel, even though you may not be able to control that. It still has some kind of effect. Um, so I don't want people to think that just because I have these issues that I can't do my job like I should, or you know people that with depression is a liability. That's not the case. Um,
Well, the reality of that, John, is the fact that because you were so self-aware of self, and that's what's important about it, is being, and that's why this is such a big issue. And I'm so grateful that you came on here to kind of address these things, because it does need to, more individuals need to be comfortable about going and getting help. So it takes a lot for any of us to be able to say, hey, you know what, shit's bothering me. You know what I mean? And so there's so many individuals that shit's bothering them, but they don't talk to anybody. Or it could be just simply because they're clinically depressed. Depression, have clinical depression. That could be treated. That could actually, get them on a higher scale. But it doesn't take away from you being able to do your job. But what the flip side to that is some of the officers that aren't addressing what's bothering them. Some of the officers that probably are clinically could be diagnosed with clinical depression, they're still going in every day, and it probably is affecting the way that they're treating people. It probably is affecting, them wanting to go to a call. It probably is affecting their personal life. So it does come into the fact of, I mean, we should all be able to look in the mirror and know that, this is okay or it's not okay. And I mean, it takes a tremendous human being like yourself to be able to acknowledge that, hey, you know what? I still want to maintain this. I do want to be able to, have that joy and, the full complexity. So, I mean, I commend you for that. And, especially for opening up like this and sharing this with us, bro.
Well, if if I don't take care of myself and I don't try to be the best person I can't help other people like I should. It is really, really what it comes down to. And as far as people getting help, you know the old saying, "Sticks and stones." You've all heard it, man. It's words. It's stupid. Don't let it bother you. Try to tell somebody with some kind of depression or mental issues. Tell them the words crazy or psychiatrist. See how that affects. That has a very bad stigma to a lot of people.
Yes, it
If I go
does.
to a psychiatrist, I'm crazy. I've got issues, and I don't, but you really do. But you're too proud. You think you're too much of a badass, whatever. That when those words come up, no, that's not me. I don't need that. And it sometimes it comes down to those words.
100%.
But
And and then so how long ago or how far into your career was it before you finally um, how long did it take you to recognize it about self, or were you just tired of being depressed or tired of not being able to have that sense of joy?
um, let's see. I started when I was about 21, 22. I left when I was 26, I believe. And I don't care to say it now, and then I wouldn't have addressed it. And my supervisors, I did not address it at the time, but I was, getting depressed. I didn't like the job. I hadn't in a while. I didn't know why. I knew some supervision had to do with it, but and then I ended up basically making stupid decisions in my personal life, and it just all come together. I was like, I can't handle this anymore. I don't really know what's going on and why, but I'm not talking to anybody about it. I did not actually go to psychiatrist and start, medication I needed until I did get with my ex-wife, and she really helped me with that. Um, but I didn't know what was going on prior to that, and that's kind of a scary thing. I'm not like I used to be, and I don't know why. But um, kind of talking about how you can be open with your department. I went back about maybe 2 years later, and I talked to the chief deputy that I'd had. I was like, look, the things that was going on. Here's what you didn't know. You didn't know I was going through this stuff. You didn't know that I was feeling this way. You didn't know what I know now because I didn't tell you. And he really acted, kind of concerned, understanding. And I had asked, I have interest in getting my job back. Now that things are kind of smoothed over, he said, "Oh yeah, talk to me. What do you want to talk to?" I'll say a supervisor. I won't give a title. A supervisor. Like, yeah, sure. While they're here, I'll go talk to them, and I explain the same thing. Didn't have the same effect. Like it didn't really matter. And I was like, well, I'm interested in getting my job back. His response was, "We'll put in an application and we'll consider it." That I mean, that's basically a slap in the face saying, "I don't want you back."
And
And
how did that? And I'm glad you shared that. I mean, because that's important as well too. So, and again, because of so much weight already being there and that compression being there, how did that intensify what you were already experiencing? I mean, like you just said, I mean, a slap in the face when you're trying to let somebody know and be open about that. I mean, because it takes a lot for an individual to even come forward as you did to say that, hey, this is what's wrong. At least I'm addressing it. So I mean, did that kind of intensify the depression that you were already in the midst of trying to get under wraps and control, or how did that play in your mind at that time?
It didn't really increase anything, but that's something we had somewhat talked about before. That's something that will happen that makes you go, well, why am I telling people what's going on? Why do I want to let them know, when they don't care? That one person can make you think that everybody doesn't care.
And that's why the stigma exists. It really is. And again, that's why I'm so glad that you brought it up, and especially that specific topic right there, because it's the what needs to be addressed. Because then it's that's that second guessing ourselves of why did I even say this in the first place. And so then the next individual you go to, hey, I probably shouldn't let them know that I have shit wrong. And that's why the stigma exists today, and that's why we need to smash the stigma. That's why we need to actually make more like this, happening, and you coming on, and you addressing it so openly. And I appreciate that so much.
And like I said, I'm very lucky with my supervisors now. They are, very understanding. Hey, they know my situations. They know what I go through. They know, the depression. And if I need them, hey, what's going on? Talk to me. It don't matter if they're on duty, off duty. They'll make time for it. One specific incident, I was sick. I was physically sick. I was stressed out. I was tired. I come into work. Uh, one of my supervisors is very blunt, and to most people, he's an asshole. He doesn't realize it because that's just him. He's always been that way. But that's how he can come off, And I was sick. I was tired. I was mentally exhausted, and I come into a note in dispatch in his tone of voice. He didn't mean it like I took it, but on top of everything else, I took it bad, and I kind of had to come apart. I went off in dispatch. I didn't attack anybody. I wasn't throwing stuff, but I was voicing my opinion in an aggressive manner. I was venting. Put it that way. And something had got back to my chief about it. I think I had went on and I was like, I'm gonna find a new job. I'm sick of this crap. Da da da. Well, he texted me, and out of nowhere, he wasn't even working at the time. He was off of the military training, and he texted me that next morning and said, "Are you looking for a new job?" It's like, no. I said, I was mad. I was venting. I'm not looking for new jobs. Like, I like my job, but everything got to me. And my assistant chief, who wrote the letter, I sent him a message. I was like, look, I was mad. I was just going off about it. Whatever. It doesn't look like it seems. And he told me, well, get with me when you come back to work. I was like, oh, damn, this is bad. I know him. I know how he is. But when I got to work, he's like, man, what's going on? And I told him, I'm thinking, man, it's going to be bad because I went off because of a note he had, even though it was a combination. And he told me, what's going on? And I told him, I said, well, man, it happens to all of us. We get tired of our job. We think about getting another job and talk to me about everything when I didn't expect that to happen. That means a lot, rather than quit your shit, act right. That makes a whole difference. Just that little bit of concern and understanding. But when somebody is, basically that, quit your shit, quit acting like a child, it affects you pretty badly. And it just that can be that two lines I just gave you can affect you a whole lot.
So did that help you being more being comfortable moving forward? Because again, rewind just a little bit before where, you tried to express, what you had going on and it was kind of like frowned upon. Now the one guy that everybody thinks is real brash and everything else is telling you that, hey, I understand. Did that help take that step forward, or is it kind of like, when somebody was drawn back that, hey, I can actually take the 2 steps forward again? I mean, how much did that play into moving forward, addressing the depression that you experienced and everything else? Was that a heightening, I guess you should say, or I mean, how would you experience that? I mean, how would you explain that?
The issues I deal with, I have never kept secret in my department. I've never tried to keep it quiet. I've never tried to keep it secret. I guess I'm just kind of open, and I want people to know me. I'm not hiding. I'm not acting like somebody I'm not. This is who I am. If you like it, great. If you don't, I can't help it. And I'm not going to act, different to please you. So that wasn't an issue. But when I'm expecting to get chewed out and I get an understanding, yeah, I mean, that really makes me more comfortable, because now I know that he understands I do have issues and I may let stuff get to me every once in a while, but he can be understanding as to why and what's going on, man. That makes a huge difference in just how you feel.
So, and it's important as well too, with you being you and the fellow brothers and sisters. Not even just you and in your department, your squad, but nationwide, to where, because you got to figure, those brothers and sisters could be the same ones that are going to have your back, and vice versa. So it is important that we do understand each other. We don't have to like each other or have the same hobbies, same interests, but we do have to understand one another. So that way, if we're both on a call, or, God forbid, it's like a 1013 or anything like that, to where we're going to be cognizant of each other, to where we can serve with each other at the highest scale. You know what I mean? So, and it means a lot that you're actually able to be yourself, them understand who yourself is. So that way they just know how to take that and address that. So knowing that you're probably going to have your days sometimes, but hey, I'm still going to have your back, So.
Yeah. And people need to understand, yeah, I may have a bad day. I may be upset. I may be emotional. But when that call comes in, I will put my issues to the back burner, because I'm going to handle this call. I'm going to help you. I'm going to arrest you, whatever needs to be done.
Start throwing chairs.
But no comment. No comment. But I will put my own behind me to help somebody else. I'm not going to, if I can help it, I'm not going to let it affect something else. But what will affect you is an example. Me and a partner was going somewhere to make a report. I think it may have been an assault already occurred. The people are gone. It's a report. Well, we stop a car on the way there because it won't get out of our way. Now, given we're going to something that's already occurred, we get chewed out. Why did you stop that car? You should have been on your way to that car. What if they'd have come back? I kind of see that point. The details of it was basically they're not going to be there. But just say that I can see his point of view. But when he is on a way to a break-in in progress, it was a storage buildings, break-in in progress, and he stops a car on the way out there. And that makes you feel a certain kind of way.
All right.
Back when I started having my issues, what he brought up was stupid. It really wasn't an issue, but he made it an issue. I screwed up. I had my own issues off duty, and I'm going to admit that. But what made it worse is when they did talk to me about it, he wanted to throw me under the bus about things he thought was an issue, even though nobody else did. But I've also got a sergeant that's telling me, hey, if you want me to go into this meeting with you, I'll go with you. Versus you got one trying to throw you under the bus. So that one that's trying to throw you under the bus can affect your mood and your thoughts more than the one that's trying to help you.
And also with that, John, is that, it does take the superiors, it does take our supervisors to lead by example in those issues. You know what I mean? Because it's them understanding you or talking about it rather than jumping to conclusions. It is going to be that step to where, the fellow brothers and sisters in the squad, seeing that response of how he treated you or responded to you coming up and admitting certain things or, addressing an issue that should have never been addressed. It is going to affect every brother and sister out there in coming forward, or how they handle the situations. So it is huge.
It is, and to make it a very simple statement, they don't care, so why should I? I mean, that can sum it up right there. They don't care, so why am I supposed to put forth this effort to where I should care? But some don't. Some supervisors don't see it that way. Hey, I've worked here for 15, 20 years. I've got the right to not care. I've got the right to sit here and drink my coffee while I send my men on a call that's 2 blocks away from me. Because
but see, another thing that with that comment, that it used to be to where it was a superior or a supervisor really could make that comment that, oh, hey, I've been there, I've done that. But how things are changing today to where, our superiors and our supervisors are superior and supervisor because of test taking abilities rather than their time of service. That affects a lot of things as well too, to where when you're experiencing things and you're actually going out there and doing it, and you have some desk jockey sitting back there that really never even, he went from traffic to, because he took a test to our superior. It's that scale is way off balance. And it does play that effect. Whereas, how are you going to sit here and try to tell me how could I handle this when, you sit here just pushing pencils and stuff like that all day? So, I mean, I know that, supervisors in your department, superiors in your department may have been there, done that. But, nationwide now, it's a growing trend for some odd reason is that, we have these desk jockeys that are fulfilling the roles as our superior and our supervisors. And that should never really be the case.
Yeah, and I worked for an asphalt company right before I got back into policing, and they had changed companies. And just a good example of that is we had not an engineer, but say a designer. He designed what needed to be done. He designed it, and he was a high school dropout. He did a great job. He knew what he was doing. When the company changed hands, now we have engineers, with degrees doing this, and they really, on paper, work great. In reality, when they're doing this, they don't know what the hell they're doing.
100%. Well, one of my other friends, Christopher Hoyer, was one of the things we were talking about too. That our superior supervisors always have something to say, or everybody on the sideline, even the civilian sector has something to say. Well, you could have done this differently, And I brought that analogy up that an engineer, they can draw a bridge, it looks good on paper, but they're not the ones actually out there constructing that bridge or having to run into the different roadblocks that's stand in the way. Well, it looks good on paper, but it's really not real life experience. So
yeah, you should have handled this call this way. Okay, well, how did you handle a call like that before? Oh, you haven't. I mean,
that's the truth. It really is. And then on top of that, though, where in this field, you're never going to have the same call. It may be similar, but now, that call you took, both parties weren't intoxicated. Both parties weren't high. The call you took, they weren't armed. There's always so many different factors, big or small, that is going to play that role on why you make a decision. And when you're dealing with split-second decisions like that, being able to say, with all of your training and what you've been exposed to prior experience, hey, I made that decision and I did what I did based on situation at hand, based on my training, and it was really best for the then and now.
And you can, when you've experienced even just something similar, you can think in your mind, well, this is how I handled it. This is how it turned out. What could I have done differently? When you've never answered a call like that, you can't say that. Right. And you just, And it may not make a difference, but you understand within yourself that, hey, this could have went differently. I could have tried to do this. You know, I could have I could have treated this person better, and this call would have probably ended up like this. So I didn't, but now that I'm having a call similar, maybe I should calm down and be more understanding and ask more questions because you didn't last time. Now you're realizing, hey, maybe I should try this and get a different outcome. If you've never been on a call like that, you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and another thing to consider too that supervisors and superiors really need to consider is that if I'm your superior and I'm saying, hey, Officer Hall, you should have done this differently, you should have done this differently, and it's on occasion after occasion after occasion after call after call after call, what's going to happen? You're going to start second guessing the decisions that you're making while you're responding to these calls. And then what does the hesitation factor play into when we serve, our communities and things like that? Hesitation factor is key. So if you have a superior that's always second guessing your decisions, it's going to create a hesitation factor on every call that you go to. Like, okay, I got to do this by the book. You know what I mean? And you can't do that. I mean, you were hired on, you earned your badge, and they need to let you do your job. And I don't mean to say that superiors and supervisors don't need to correct us if, we did handle something truly wrong or it wasn't by the book and there was no reason for me to make a decision not to do it by the book. But they do need to understand that, hey, just let me do my job and, kind of correct me on those issues. Because if you're addressing me on the way that I handled call after call after call, I'm just going to, and like you addressed, multiple times through this broadcast that, fuck it. Why should I do it? I'm just going to be second guessed or anything else, so.
Yeah. And it kind of gets to the feeling that I'm not answering my own calls. I'm having to answer my calls and handle them the way they want it done. I am a grown, mature person that carries a loaded firearm that may have to shoot somebody, hurt somebody, kill somebody in certain events, but you don't have enough trust in me to handle this call.
Well, another thing too, with you saying it like that, it can be because of all that second guessing that superiors are given or putting against you when it comes to having to discharge firearm. Again, going back to hesitation factor. Again, going back to where every second matters on every call. It's I wonder what he's going to say about should I really discharge firearm? And now all of a sudden, fellow officer or even worse, a civilian is killed because of that self-doubt or second guessing that would have never been there if you were never second guessed, once, let alone multiple occasions by our superiors or our supervisors.
Yeah, trust me to do my job and to make my own judgment. When you try to control every call I go on, now I'm like, oh, wait a minute before you attack me. Let me call my supervisor and see how he would handle it. And it, I mean,
hey boss, hey, can I?
But some people do, and I've had a supervisor like that before. Trust me to make my own calls. If I make one wrong, yeah, correct me. Tell me what I could have done differently, but don't tell me on every single call that I should have done this. I should have done this because now you do like after a while, am I handling this right? What should and not even just a deadly situation. Hesitation can cause a event to spiral out of control because when you've got somebody that is aggressive, they can see that hesitation as a chance to run over you. Yeah. You don't know what you're doing, or you're not willing to do what you need to do to get this in hand. Now I can run over him, and it's the same way that I will tell a lot of people that start. Don't ever let a situation start spiraling downward if you can help it, because once it starts, it is hard to stop. Don't ever let somebody on the call think you don't know what you're talking about, because they will run over you, and that will cause that downward spiral. And it is hell to try to. And I don't know what to add to that. I mean, that's pretty much,
I mean, it is. And I mean, and that's important though, too, because, with what you and I are discussing right now and smashing the stigma and addressing mental health and depression, that plays a large role on that. And that's the reason why I'm glad you brought this up, because that does, when you're dealing with somebody that, which every Leo in the nation is experiencing some sort of, and again, some may be depressed, but some may actually be experiencing depression, which actually will progressively get worse if they do not address it. But then all of a sudden you stack something where somebody that's already, clinically has clinical depression, and now all of a sudden, all of that second guessing, all of that doubt about you doing your job, and then you're carrying that in your head, then you start doubting yourself. That's never a good combination in any career, let alone this career,
No, and we spoke, depression is not the same as being depressed, but
Right.
if you're depressed and you don't seek help and things keep piling up and piling up, that can turn into a depression that you can't get out of on your own.
Yes, sir.
You need help carrying that weight sometimes, or it can turn into something a whole lot worse that you can't recover from. Um, uh, I've not got much time left, but I do want to address this, and it's not specific to law enforcement, but I deal with this badly. Depression can very much affect somebody's memory. Um, I know that's kind of way off subject, but it's
It's,
something
no,
that
it's no, it's not off subject, because, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm going to let you say what you're saying, and I want to kind of add to that. I know you're short on time because this is vital. I was going to bring it up anyway, and I'm glad you brought that up because it plays a large role in it, actually.
um, we'll start kind of just a quick growing up. My dad would always get mad at me when he'd tell me something. You're not paying attention. Well, I don't remember what you're not paying attention. Now that I'm grown, I know that, yeah, maybe sometimes I didn't, but there was something else going on there, and it's really sad when I think about it. But it's to the point where a very, very large chunk of my childhood I can't remember. That's how much it can affect you. And I mean, it can really bother you when you think about it. Oh, man, all these experiences I had, I don't even remember doing them. Um, you know, I've had before people talk to me, yeah, remember whenever we talked about, no, I don't. Well, we did that. Remember that? Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. Now I remember. It may be something we did yesterday, but that little bit jogged my memory. But I have had on my own, and not like important situations with work, but just friendly conversation. They can talk to me about something and I don't remember, and they jog my memory, but it doesn't. I cannot recall whatsoever. And I mean, it sucks, but people can get mad at you that, you're not paying attention, or, you forgot that we were supposed to be doing this. And I kind of have an issue with sudden plan changes. Just say, somebody calls me, be like, hey, can you do this tomorrow? Oh, let me think. Do I have anything going on tomorrow? And it may not be. I may not have anything planned for the next week. But in my mind, I'm like, oh, damn, if I forgot something, let me think about it. And it sucks. And a lot of people have problems understanding it, but it does. Just mental health, depression, and other situations, man, it can kill your memory. And
Well, and it does too. And, and a lot of times too, like the studies have been done to where, especially when someone, and that's, again, going back to being medically clinically depressed, clinical depression, opposed to just being depressed. Because what happens, like with the studies of what they think, is that subconsciously because of us not being able to experience feeling in essence, you know what I mean, about that depression. A lot of times we depress so much to where our memory becomes so programmed to where things that, really aren't magnified, it just gets flushed out. And they say that, a lot of times, like with, clinical depression untreated, may lead into dementia and things like that, because it really does affect memory, because it's our memory's way of protection to where it just blocks out certain things, to where it just stores the things that are relevant to, my well-being every day, to where, I'll forget something just because it wasn't something that needed to stick in my mind. It's a self-programming tool that, our bodies, do. So
you can kind of think, and I think just about everybody's had this. you're cruising down the highway, down the interstate, and then all of a sudden you're 5 miles down the road. How did I get here? I don't remember. Think about that in your life. I don't know why I don't remember these last few miles that I've drove, but I don't. Think about it being your life. I don't remember these things happening. I don't know why I don't. I should, but I don't, and I can't explain it.
It's important. And the biggest importance of it is that you're talking about this right now, addressing it right now, because acknowledging something like that and recognizing that's the only way that we can address certain things and improve on quality of life for yourself and so many others that are experiencing the same thing but haven't actually spoken up about it or sought the help so that they can experience that quality of life that they deserve and everything as well too. So
and one thing I really hope is some people will have these issues and they don't understand it, but hopefully me being open about stuff, they'll be like, oh, well, I have that. I didn't know why I had that. I thought I was just, weird because that happened, but other people have it happen too. Hey, there's actually something to this. It's not just me. It make them feel better about trying to figure out what's going on. Because,
there's power in numbers like that,
it is very hard to do something on your own. I'm alone. I don't know why this is. I'm just going to suck it up and not talk about it. But when you feel like somebody's in there with you, it makes it easier to do things. And that's kind of what I hope for, to click, hey, I have this going on and I just thought it was me, but it's not. So maybe I can get help. Maybe I can, study it, look into what causes this, anything to improve that for them.
The understanding of helps us deal with and carry,
Yes. But that I wanted to address because a lot of people don't understand it. They don't think that it's a thing.
Right.
You shouldn't be forgetting this stuff. I don't understand why you are. You're just not paying attention. You don't care when it's not that at all. It's something beyond your control. And believe me, I don't enjoy not remembering conversations I had, because obviously if I had these conversations, they meant something.
100%. And I really hope that we can do this again. I mean, I'd like to do this as often as you find time. And I mean, I appreciate the time that you've given us and everything else too. And it's an issue that needs to be addressed. And you and any other that has those moments of things like that, I'm always available. You know what I mean, John? So just reach out and things like that. And we need to do this again and do this as often as possible until everybody understands that, hey, it's okay that I address this issue, because it's in addressing the issue that that quality of life that you seek for yourself and the quality of life that we're trying to provide for others when we serve in the law enforcement community and first responder communities, for the others that we serve and stuff. So thank you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Yeah, I plan on doing it again. I had sat down before and wrote down things that I wanted to talk about, and I've wrote down 2 pages worth in 10 minutes.
Awesome.
That's off the top of my head. So yeah, there's definitely other things that I want to address, but of course, my busy schedule, but I do like to take time for each subject. I don't want to run through every subject I have in 30 minutes. And yeah, people heard it, but they don't understand it because I just flew through everything and can't discuss it or,
we'll do a series, and we'll structure each show just around each talking point. That way we can spend time on that. And that's one of the things that I'm going to, even though I utilize StreamYard for these broadcasts like this, I'm going to start also running it on the Facebook Live so we can get more interaction and things like that with the comments, people asking questions. You provide the answers, or the experience of what you go through and everything else too. So we can start getting everybody else engaged and expand this discussion so far out there. And that's what we'll do, is we'll just create a series around the different talking points that you have and things like that. I'd love to do that.
And I would actually really enjoy that, because questions are good, and somebody may ask a question, be like, oh, I skipped over that, or maybe I didn't explain that good enough, and it jogs my memory for something I can talk about or explain. And I mean, I'm all for that, because my mind only works so much. If somebody else jogs it, then hey, that's even better. I can help even more maybe.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. And that's my overall goal with this is just that because of me utilizing StreamYard, even though it's running on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, everything else, they have to actually enable access for StreamYard with their profile so that we can see who's making the comments and things like that as well too. So I might have to start putting like instructions up there so we can actually start getting that engagement because like you just pointed out, these questions and comments from the viewers, it's important, so.
And I've had a coworker of mine that was trying to watch this, and for some reason she couldn't get it to play. So maybe
Well,
different.
there's been Kayla, Megan, and one other one that actually is on the bottom right here that were like trying to get into the stream. So I don't know if they were some of the ones that were actually trying to view it or make comments. So that's on the next one and everything else. I'm gonna start setting it up on the Facebook Live as well too, because like one of the reasons why I wasn't using the Facebook Live is I didn't know that I could utilize my green screen on Facebook Live. I thought like Facebook Live was like here and now, but I can actually do it from my desktop with my cameras, with my lights, and with my green screen. So, and that way people will be more interactive where they don't have to go through two processes to be able to ask you a question. So, because I always want to make the experience better for everybody involved. So.
Oh yeah, yeah, and Kayla, that's one that's kind of important because that's actually my dispatcher that I have spoke about. Given we've talked a lot about these issues, but at the same time, maybe I'm thinking of stuff now that I haven't thought to discuss before, or just the fact that we're already involved in work. It's nice to be able to relay everything.
All right.
But I think she had a problem before with it, so that would be great. If we can expand it, even
it helps people understanding of each other. Just like we were talking about earlier, to where the more we talk about these things, the more understanding we have of each other, and we can know that maybe that's why he may have a bad day one day, or maybe that's why she has a bad day some days. Because it's in addressing these issues that we understand each other, and that's the reason I love doing this, and I'd like to do it as often as possible.
Yeah, I'm all for anybody that I can help, but too, coworkers. Even though I may talk to them, getting to talking with this, there could be something come up. But I didn't know that. Maybe that's something we do need to discuss or open up about. We've talked, but I didn't know that was going on, or I didn't know that happened to him, or any of that stuff. So I think that the broader we can get this, then the more people that can see it, and maybe more people that can reach it. I don't know how all this works, so whatever we can get to do. I mean, I'm good. Like I said,
I'll make it happen because I'll still use the StreamYard because, and with that being said, and you talking about like the coworkers, fellow brothers and sisters, and even dispatch, that we can have up to 10 people per broadcast. So that we can have 8 others on this broadcast, to where that way, and then the viewers, I'll start using Facebook Live to where they'll be able to actually have the comments coming in there, so we can start addressing issues that they may be facing, and help us address issues about ourselves when they ask questions or make comments and things like that as well. So
I would love that, because I can explain almost 2 hours now. I can explain everything on my mind, but when people have specific questions, I can help it more, because
sure.
they need to know this a certain way, and I can kind of explain it to them. But yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. I've got more that I want to discuss, and like I said, I like being able to spread out the time, so maybe I can make people understand more about what's going on. And I do want to add this before I go. My background picture there behind you. I told you I have it up at work, and I've got a room that I will stay in sometimes, and I'll sleep there. The welcome to the shit show is the first thing I see whenever I wake up when I stay in that room.
Awesome. That's great. I love that. That is, it is those little reminders to ourselves, though, that kind of give that sense of joy, especially when we have so much shit going on. I mean, we have to have some kind of comedy about it in a sense. You know, I mean, life is one great comedy, but you know, it's not to ignore the shit going on, but you know, to actually just realize it's an awakening in a sense to where, hey, look, hey, here you are. You know what I mean? So that's awesome. I love that. And then, hey, John, thank you so much for your time today. And I'll send you over a schedule, and you know, vice versa. We can kind of just go back and forth on this, and you know, we'll start getting everything else set up. That way, you know, if there's certain talking points that you want to have somebody else, you know, come on there with, you know, bring them along, or that way we can always just send the invites, or you know, when I send you a link, if you share that link with anybody, so like at the bottom, so like with Kayla, for example, it says the device is not connected. And then with Megan, it's just sitting there. So I don't know if it was like the camera. I think the camera's off. But you know, as long as you give them foreknowledge that hey, we're about to do this show, we can add them too, or they can just be ready to ask questions. You know, whatever suits everybody else and everything like that. But you know, I'll send you over the schedule. You can kind of see what best suits for you, and you know your hours as well too. So thank you so much.
I'm all for it, and that's one thing about me. You know, we had a setup of I believe it was 5:30 today. And I got what 10 minutes early, I believe. And I've just got this thing where if I think I'm gonna be on time and stretch myself, I'm late. I am late. It stresses me out. And that today, you know, I was one thing after another trying to get stuff done. I was like, I gotta hurry up. You know, when I get here and it's like 7:20, I'm like, why am I still stressed out that I haven't already been here?
I'll start telling you that it's a half hour before it actually is. Get you rushing.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
Awesome. All right. Well, hey, thank you again. And as soon as I get off here, I'm going to email you over the different schedules of like the ones coming up and everything else too, and you kind of fit your schedule around that, and we'll just start hitting every talking point and everything else. We communicate via email if you want. That way you can say, hey, this is the first talking point that I want to do. That way I can kind of structure it out, and any guests that you want to have on there and everything else as well too. And thank you so much for your time. It's a blessing, and I pray that more first responders, law enforcement, dispatchers, EMTs, fire, everybody starts stepping forward and addressing these issues. We, truly can smash the stigma, even with military personnel as well. And thank you again, John. It's been a true pleasure. Stay blessed and stay safe in all things, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I had fun.
Yes, sir. That's what it's about.
Yes, sir. All right.